What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon466 Cards, and today we're going to talk about how Leaf can help grow the hobby. That's right, Leaf can help grow the hobby. Not Fanatics, Leaf. I almost can't believe I'm saying these words right now. But I think there's a way for Leaf, in its own niche, to grow the hobby and succeed as well. We've obviously heard about Fanatics and their goal to 10x the hobby and how they want to grow the number of collectors, but that doesn't mean a smaller company like Leaf can't also help grow the hobby. And so I have an idea that is a little bit out there, but I think has some merit to it. And I would love to hear your thoughts and comments, so let me know in the comment section down below. But before we get into the idea, we should do a quick recap of what's happened at Leaf over the last year and change. About a year ago, Brian Gray, longtime CEO and owner, stepped down and sold the company. You can see here this article from Sports Collectors Daily is August 25th, 2023. So he had been around for 13 years, you can see it says here, and he left the company, and he's obviously a big voice in the hobby, both literally and figuratively. Kevin O'Neill was named interim CEO, or not interim CEO, CEO after Brian left. And he lasted just a little under a year because as of August 23rd, 2024, he announced his retirement or his resignation on Twitter in this somewhat strange Twitter post. So he left August 23rd, 2024. Brian left August 25th, 2023. So two CEOs have resigned within a year. And obviously for stability, that's not great. For strategic direction, that's not great. And perhaps these two folks leaving and stepping down, in Brian's case, selling the company, has to do with a new competitor probably popping up in the unlicensed space. Leaf, as you all know, has been the king of the unlicensed space, and that's really where they've built their own little space in the hobby, doing unlicensed stuff, doing pop culture stuff, right? But with Fanatics winning and taking over a bunch of the league licensing rights, you can see here they've now taken over the English Premier League as of May 2024. Obviously, they've done stuff with the NFL, NBA, MLB. That means that Panini won't have a lot of licenses left, which means they might enter the unlicensed space that Leaf is used to kind of running and owning and dominating. And even though Leaf is a nice company, if you compare the size of the two companies, Panini is still much bigger than Leaf, as far as I can tell, and as far as I know. Feel free to correct me if I'm incorrect there. But in comes this new big player into the space, possibly to fight and compete with Leaf in this unlicensed space. And so perhaps that's why Brian left and sold the company. That's perhaps why Kevin might not agree with the new owner as to what to do in terms of strategy and purpose and what direction they want to take. That is a lot to deal with because you have a possible behemoth coming into the space looking for cards to make. And so if Panini starts taking over a bunch of the unlicensed stuff and paying athletes to sign, unlicensed cards, but that have their face and their picture on it and their signature, but it just doesn't have the logos, then that kind of leaves Leaf off to the side and without much to do. And that's where my idea comes in. Because one option is to say, we know the unlicensed space really well, and we're willing to battle out with Panini because we know what we're doing and Panini doesn't, and we've been doing this for a while. And sure, that is definitely one way to do that. But being a much smaller player compared to the size of Panini, it's like a bit of a David and Goliath thing, and I don't know if I want to be fighting Goliath in this space because at the end of the day, money will trump the day. So I think that doesn't sound like a good solution. So they have to find new products to manufacture, and they need new audiences to manufacture to. And that's where my wacky idea, well, possibly wacky, maybe legitimate, maybe a good idea comes into play. Leaf needs to get weird. If unlicensed was a niche, we need a niche of a niche. We need a sub-niche. We need a niche of a niche of a niche. They need to get super, super, super cultish in their products that it actually doesn't make sense for a company like Panini to chase after. Obviously, small niches that Fanatics won't think about because it's not worth their time, and same thing for Panini. And how I came up with this idea is this one video that I saw recently. This person in the middle here is a wrestler. His name is Matt Cardona. He used to work in the WWE as Zack Ryder. Doesn't matter if you're not a wrestling fan. None of this is important. But he is now on the independent wrestling circuit because he no longer works for WWE. And he recently, or not recently, maybe it sounds like here in 2021, he had what is known as a death match on the independent circuit, where he had this very apparently famous or infamous match where he got super bloodied. And in this video, he's recounting about all the money he made from that match. He said he sold his boots, he sold his trunks, he sold everything. And then this is the part where I thought about cards, because in this match, it's a death match. Apparently there's a lot of blood that's going everywhere, and on his shirt, it got super, super bloodied. It's like fully red, according to him in this interview. And then he talks about selling off that shirt. So I'm just going to play this for you here.
Then, I started thinking like the collector I am. And I thought about all those WrestleMania plaques that I collected as a fan. Or luckily, I had a couple as the IC champ or tag team champ, where they take a piece of the canvas, they cut up the canvas, they put it in a nice plaque with a photo, and you sign it and they sell it. I contacted that company, and we made official plaques with a piece of that bloody shirt, a nice autograph. I made over 20 grand on a t-shirt.
So the idea here is pretty straightforward. Rather than Matt Cardona going to this company to create plaques of his bloody shirts, why can't, after an event like this that becomes, kind of gets a cult following and kind of goes viral in his very small niche of independent wrestling, rather than making these plaques, why can't he cut up that shirt and put it into a card and make it a patch autograph and work with a company like Leaf? And that way he can still make his 20 or 30 grand or whatever that he made there, which is like an amazing amount for a bloody t-shirt, right? But that also, by doing that, you're introducing a very niche part of society to trading cards, because now Matt Cardona is now saying like, hey, if you want a piece of this shirt that was a part of this death match, that was part of wrestling history now, go buy my new set of 199 Leaf patch autographs with a piece of the shirt, of the bloodied shirt, I should say, in the card itself. And then he makes the same amount of money, basically 20, 30 grand, from selling a shirt and signing a couple hundred autographs. And then now these niche independent wrestling scene fans have now had their first exposure to cards because they bought this thing. Because what we're trying to do here is build and grow the hobby and the idea of card collecting and exposing it to new niches such as independent wrestling scene. So that's the first idea. And when there are viral events or events that just kind of pop up and someone, it goes viral for a little bit of time, this is the type of thing where Leaf can jump in and say like, haha, let's get involved with whoever went viral and get a piece of that. Another thing they can do to grow the hobby is to target people with very strong followings and very large followings that do not overlap at all with cards. And so I'm thinking someone with a strong YouTube presence or Instagram presence, or basically influencers, right? And so the person I can think of is this guy named iShowSpeed. I know very little about this guy, except I seem to see him pop up everywhere. And he's 19 and he already has 28 million followers on YouTube, 23 million followers on Instagram. And he just kind of shows up and does stuff. I don't really know what he does, but he obviously is doing something right? And so this is what he looks like. One of the things I have seen of him is that he likes jumping over moving cars. You could see here, there's a bunch of videos when I show Speed jumps over car, and this is him. And so what I think a company like Leaf can do is, this guy has a huge following. This guy is really popular right now. So when he does a stunt like this, why can't he then take this jersey that he's wearing and make a patch autograph out of that. And then you now have a piece of the shirt that he's wearing when he jumped over this Lamborghini or Porsche or whatever this car is. And then that becomes another set of patch autographs, because you could probably cut this shirt to probably a couple hundred pieces, right? And then this guy earned some money for jumping over a car, and his fans get a piece of the, I guess what they would think is his history. And also his 20 plus million followers now hear about cards for the first time. And that's, yet again, like I was saying before, another way for him to grow the hobby. And if we want to get really, really kind of like sadistic, or I don't know the right word is, let's talk about this. I don't want to get too political on this YouTube video, but this is obviously an important event in US history. And I think this is obviously too extreme, but a situation like this that everybody in the world hears about, couldn't you try to get his like suit or shirt and give him like 80% of the proceeds and have him do some signings and sell that and do some patch autographs? And they would sell like that, right? There's no way, you can't tell me that this wouldn't sell. If we had Donald Trump cut up the white shirt that he's wearing. It's too bad he's not wearing a tie. A tie auto would be interesting. But cut up his shirt, have him sign, 100 of them or whatever, put them on the internet or put them online for like, I don't know, a couple grand each. You have 100 of them or 1,000 of them, and you've just made like $2 million. And you give him like 1.5 million of the 2 million or something, right? If you have 100 or 1,000 of them. It's not that hard. Obviously, you'd have to get them on board, but that's just another idea that's kind of like this I Show Speed idea that's similar to this Matt Cardona idea. Another thing I'm just thinking about right now, what if you got one of the Secret Service agents and got their jackets or shirts and had them sign it? This is a big piece of history. Maybe you could sell some of that. Like when I say get weird and get niche, I am saying get really weird and get really niche. And maybe there is a president or a prime minister or someone or a celebrity somewhere in Europe that also has a following like this. Or maybe think about the guys from, Dude Perfect, where they do all those trick shots? Well, why can't you do a little bit of a patch auto with them? They made this crazy, Guinness Book of World Records trick shot or whatever, and then they cut up the shirts of the 1 or 2 or 3 guys that are involved with it, have them sign it, and then you have a patch auto from the Dude Perfect the trick shot, and then you could say, I have the piece of shirt that guy was wearing when he did the trick shot that I can now watch online, and you could be like, oh, there's my shirt right there. It's obviously, these things are very niche, very, very niche, but I think there's an audience for it, and more importantly for the hobby, I think this is a way to expose people that aren't in the hobby to cards, and that's ultimately what will get more growth in the hobby. And so that's the idea, is for Leaf to turn this situation that they're in, where they might have more competition with unlicensed product, into an opportunity to go super niche into spaces that Fanatics, it's not worth their time to do, and probably not for Panini either, but it's small enough that, or it's still big enough for Leaf to do, but small enough that Panini and Fanatics won't care about it. And again, this is probably too morbid. Morbid is the word I was looking for. Not the other word I was saying. Morbid is the word I was looking for, right? So maybe this one is a little too morbid, but I Show Speed, Dude Perfect, wrestling death matches. Maybe there's like Eurovision, right? That's a big contest in Europe where you could get like the outfit of a singer who's singing. Maybe some kind of award show for like musicians or rappers or whatever, and get their whatever it is, the clothing that they're wearing, or maybe someone wears something to the Grammys. Like, you can do all sorts of stuff. I think Leaf just needs to get weird. That is the idea for Leaf to grow the hobby. Get super weird, get into niche and subcultures of society, and get those people into cards, and as a result use that niche and the people who star in that niche to basically promote cards on their behalf. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments. Does this idea make sense, or am I just out of my mind with this wacky idea? Would love to hear your thoughts and comments. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.